afternoon. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, that's local to North Alabama. And then we're syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can also find us on our podcast, netnewsnetwork.net. I'm so proud to be part of this network here. Lots of fantastic talk show hosts, so I have a lot to learn from, which is going to make life a lot very, very exciting. Wanted to talk to you about mother-in-laws. Yeah, mother-in-laws. I'm one of them right here. Now, this is a fantastic thing that you could be noted as a mother-in-law like this one. Happy Mother's Day to a mother-in-law that I never have to vent about. Isn't that pretty awesome? And then you got this one right here. You remember the Munster-in-law with Jane Fonda? Jane Fonda even finds out her future daughter-in-law is allergic to nuts, and her face swells and what have you. So the night before the wedding dinner party, she sneaks some nuts into the gravy. What kind of a mother-in-law is that? My goodness. So anyway, I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure, my daughter-in-law and I get along with each other really well. Her name is Larissa, and they live in North Carolina. And she's just, she's a delight as a daughter-in-law. But I wanted to talk to you, and I can really learn from this as well, because I always want to improve. And so I found an article, and it's at sanebites.com, sanebites.com. Mother-in-law with inspiring characteristics is a mother-in-law the world needs. Are you blessed with one? And I'm doing this because I remember when I had my first job, and there were some women I worked with, and they were always trashing their daughter-in-laws, or the daughter-in-law was always trashing the mother-in-law. So it really, really early on, I thought, you know, when my son gets married, I don't want to be one of those mother-in-laws. I want to be the best I can be. So I've done a lot of research on what to do. Basically, just be yourself. Don't try too hard. You know, don't give advice unless it's solicited. Okay, that's extremely important there as well. So this is number one. It says a great mother-in-law treats her newly married daughter-in-law warmly. That's extremely important. Now the movie Monster-in-Law, she did not treat her daughter-in-law very well. So marriage is a new beginning and quite a drastic change for a woman. With that said, nothing could be more comforting to a newlywed bride than a mother-in-law who welcomes her into the family with an open heart. Now, a great mother-in-law will ensure that you are comfortable in the new setting and you feel at home. Number two, let's talk about after all, who can understand that change better than she does? She was once in the same shoes. I remember I was in the same shoes Larissa was in as well. They've been married for 13 years now. 14 will be next year. So, and I'm so, so happy for them. As a matter of fact, one time Larissa said, if something ever happened between Brad and me, could I come and live with you? And I said, if he's ever that foolish, yes. Yeah, he's not going to let her go. She's a prize. Number two, she encourages you in all your pursuits. She doesn't get jealous of you. One of the most important traits of a great mother-in-law is that she encourages her daughter-in-law in all her pursuits. She constantly stands by her daughter-in-law as a pillar of support. That's what you got to be. So whether it's supporting her large decision like a career move or something as small as changing the living room furniture, that mother-in-law's got your back. Okay, number three, what makes her a great mother-in-law? She doesn't hesitate to be the first one to open the channel of communication with her daughter-in-law when there's a misunderstanding. There's no hidden fact that communication is the key to every successful relationship. This rule applies to a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship as well. What distinguishes a good mother-in-law from a great mother-in-law is her humility. A great mother-in-law should keep her ego aside and should not hesitate to be the first one to open a channel of communication when things go wrong. I hope I'm not making mother-in-laws mad at this point. Let this be a learning experience, because I'm just going to tell you, if there is a rift and you try to make your son choose between you and the daughter-in-law, your son is stupid if he chooses you. I'm just telling you, you know, she should be number one in your son's life. That daughter-in-law of yours, his wife, number one. The Bible says that. Number four, a great mother-in-law is collaborative, not competitive. Oh, for goodness sakes. You should never compete with your daughter-in-law against cooking or anything else. One of the most important traits of a great mother-in-law is that she does not try to compete with you. The the I can do better attitude, and the mother-in-law is a red flag, and it could indicate that she's a jealous mother-in-law. Now, a great mother-in-law is a secure woman who'll never try to sabotage or outperform her daughter-in-law. In fact, she would offer to help and collaborate with her to get the best out of the situation. Let your daughter-in-law be number one. Number 5, she practices what she preaches. Now, if a mother-in-law believes in the fair treatment at all and treats her daughter-in-law as a second-class citizen, she definitely needs to dig in more deeply into herself. Contrarily, a great mother-in-law practices what she preaches. She does not have to separate or have a separate rule and values for herself and then for others. Number 6, she respects her daughter-in-law for the woman she is. Before being a wife to her husband, a daughter-in-law is a woman. A great mother-in-law would always want to establish a relationship with the daughter-in-law that she is independent of her son. She tries to connect with her on a woman-to-woman level. Now, this creates a deeper level of understanding between the two women, which is a healthy, non-judgmental, and bias-free. Number 7, she graciously accepts the change in her relationship with her son post her marriage, his marriage. A mother-in-law relationship is very special, and sometimes it makes it difficult for mothers to let go of their sons. In fact, research has found out that mother-in-laws have the DNA of their sons forever stored in their brains, but it's nice to watch them grow. You're not going to live forever. Odds are your son is going to outlive you. So why should your son be so connected to your body that he's not with his wife? Surprisingly, a good mother-in-law understands that after marriage, her equation with her son has changed. She respects the relationship between her son and the daughter-in-law. She slowly steps out and allows her son to move ahead and concentrate on his own family. Absolutely she does. Number 8, she kind of catches up with the changing times. It's not going to be like it was when you got married. A great mother-in-law tries to keep herself up to date with the ways of the world. She tries to understand the implications of change and tries her best to keep up to strengthen her relationship with the son's family. For example, a good mother-in-law would never curtail her daughter-in-law's freedom or discourage her career advancement to fulfill her domestic duties. Number 9, she never forces herself on her daughter-in-law. No, don't force suggestions, don't force anything on her. It goes without saying that with every great mother-in-law needs to understand and respect the differences between herself and her daughter-in-law. A great mother-in-law is not the one who tries to be a best friend to her daughter-in-law. She is mature enough to form a respectful and meaningful relationship with her without overstepping her boundaries. Let them breathe, okay? And guess what? They're going to make mistakes. Let them. You stay out of it. Number 10, she doesn't force you to adopt her traditions and customs. I don't want my daughter-in-law to be like me. I have a lot of room for improvement. I don't want her to be like me. She needs to be herself. It's unfair for a mother-in-law to expect her daughter-in-law to inculcate the same set of values and beliefs as she holds. As an individual, a daughter-in-law is to have her own beliefs, and a mother-in-law must respect that. A great mother-in-law is one who does not force her religious beliefs, practices, traditions, and customs upon her daughter-in-law. Number 11, a considerate mother-in-law doesn't expect you to be a stereotype. It is not unacceptable to come across as a mother-in-law who expects her daughter-in-law to stick to age-old stereotypes, such as a woman alone is responsible for household duties. No, this is how I raised my son, by the way. And it says it right here. Rather, a mother who has raised her son to be equally responsible on the same front is a good mother-in-law. So, Brad, I taught him how to cook, how to clean house. And the reason I did that is I knew someday he would be married. Sometimes people get sick. They get the flu. Now you have to worry about COVID and stuff like that. Well, if she's sick and he's not to lay flopped up on the couch with her trying to keep everything up. And if she works too, yeah, the responsibility lies within both of them. Phil does that for me. When I had COVID, he was just all over the place cleaning up the house and doing all kinds of things. He was cooking for me. He was doing all kinds of things. A good mother-in-law raises her son to be that way. And so I'm really glad I got the husband I've got. And I'm pretty sure Larissa's glad to have the husband she's got. Okay, number 12, she treats you as fairly as her son. Absolutely. One of the most defining traits of a great mother-in-law is that she does not discriminate between her son and her daughter-in-law. A good relationship should not have any scope of bias. Now, it's natural for a mother to favor her own child over others. However, once that child is married, the spouse becomes an important part of her life. A good mother-in-law acknowledges this and keeps both the husband and the wife on the same pedestal. Absolutely. My daughter-in-law is my daughter. I mean, it's just the way it is. She's my girl. She's the girl I never had. Number 13, she never compares you to her own children. As much as people might debate, the truth is that a daughter-in-law is not a daughter, but I think she is. A good mother-in-law understands and respects this fact. Now, a good mother-in-law would never compare her own children to her daughters-in-law. Never. Never, never, never. Number 14, a great mother-in-law doesn't interfere in your parenting style. Now, grandmothers can be very attached to the grandchildren, but they have to realize that they are not their mother. So raising children lies completely on the parents. And while the grandparents can assist that, they must not interfere. A good mother-in-law would not interfere with your parenting style. She respects you as a parent and allows you to make all the important decisions in the child's life. Guess what, mother-in-laws? It's none of your business anymore. Most importantly, she would never undermine your authority, especially in front of the children. Never, never. Number 15, she respects your space. One of my friend's mother-in-law rearranges her whole kitchen when she's visiting. What? She points out all the wrong things she's doing and tries to fix them. Now, if you're a mother-in-law reading this and you're listening to this right now, take note. That is definitely not the trait of a good mother-in-law. A good mother-in-law is one who accepts your lifestyle and doesn't try to change it. And she gives you and your husband ample space to follow through their own lifestyles and choices. Number 16, she doesn't speak negatively about the daughter-in-law to others. That's a huge no-no right there. Median mother-in-laws are the habit of spreading negativity and bad-mouthing their daughters-in-law in front of others. Now, a good mother-in-law would never indulge in this type of behavior. A good mother-in-law would ensure that if she has some unresolved issues with you, she would bring them up to you, and you alone, not even to the son. Don't ever do that. Now we're talking about mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. Let's also think about this as far as mother-in-laws and sons-in-laws, okay? You want to be a bad mother-in-law either, regardless. Okay, let's go ahead and cut into a commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a few minutes, mother-in-laws.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. Let Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC take the burden off you for all your tax needs. I know because Rhonda has been taking care of my business since 2013. I feel Rhonda works for me because she knows the direct questions to ask to better benefit my unique business in order for me to get back the biggest refund possible. Rhonda is an ongoing student, and she knows tax laws are in a constant change every year. Call 256-281-9903 for an appointment to take the dread out of getting your taxes done. Rhonda is located at 11968 U.S. Highway 431 in Boaz. Again, that number is 256-281-9903. And let Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC champion your personal and business taxes.
Jeff McCurdy of the McCurdy Law Firm has been a public service of this area for over 10 years. McCurdy, a member of the Henniger City Council, serves as prosecutor for the town of Sylvania and was named public defender for the city of Rainsville. The McCurdy Law Firm is located at 17326 Alabama Highway 75 in Henniger to better represent his Jackson and DeKalb County clients. If you need to be represented by a true public servant with proven success, call Jeff at 256-996-8701 or send a private email to mccurdylawfirm@gmail.com. No representation is made that the legal services performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers.
At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
Okay, we're back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of The Edge on IC Radio. You are my source for news and entertainment. I love being with you. And I just felt like I needed to talk about this. This is about mother-in-laws because I've heard some of on Facebook. I've seen some of this stuff. And remember this, whatever you dish out is going to come back to you. Never be the kind of mother-in-law that you make your son choose between you and his wife. If he has any kind of a brain whatsoever, he's not going to choose the mother. At least not going to choose his mother over his wife. I mean, that is brainless. First of all, if Brad ever chose me over Larissa, I would say, what is wrong with you? I'm not going to be alive forever. You've made this mate and you love her, because he'd never do that. But I'm just saying, if that ever came up, I would have his brain jacked, really. Not you anymore, mom-in-law. Okay, number 17, she remembers important days and events in your life. Oh, yeah, you remember every birthday. You remember the wedding anniversary. You remember all these things. Now, a great mother-in-law will always remember the important days and events in your life. She's not pushy, but definitely makes an effort to be part of your life. She sends the best wishes for your birthday. Send flowers. Do stuff like that, okay? Follow through with the results from a doctor's appointment and congratulates you on your professional achievements. Definitely. Number 18. A great mother-in-law is not preachy. Not at all. And gives advice only when asked. And then you got to be careful about that, okay? Some mother-in-laws are just a habit of excessively being preachy and giving unsolicited advice. They constantly try to meddle with your married life and they try to impose their opinions on you. A good mother-in-law knows her boundaries very well. Despite being part of your life, she maintains a respectful distance. and refrains from passing judgments and giving you advice on conducting your everyday business. True. Number 19, she is the first to offer a helping hand in your difficult times. Blessed are the women who have an understanding mother-in-law who are always willing to help them out in a difficult situation. Whether it's the last-minute planning of a family gathering or offering to babysit your children on a busy day, a great mother-in-law is a woman you can count on to have your back. Most definitely she is. You know, something I find that's really, really interesting. And so Larissa's mother passed away. We live in Alabama, and they live in North Carolina. When her mom passed away, there was no, Phil and I we didn't even ask this question. So I sent Phil a text. He was working at that time, and I told him that Larissa's mom passed. And oh man, he said, okay, I'm getting off in an hour. Get ready. We're going to North Carolina. We didn't even question that. We jumped in the car. Oh, by the way, I got stopped by a cop for driving too fast. I was in such a hurry to get there. And and we drove it because that was the quickest thing to do. And her sister passed. Did that again. We left from Alabama to North Carolina. No question asked. We jumped in the car and we got there because I had to be there for her. Now, did I give like preachy advice and stuff like that? No, I didn't. I didn't know what to say. I could say the dumbest things. So I just kept my mouth shut. She saw I was there. That's all she needed. She just needed to know I was right there. And that's all you got to do. You don't have to have like these magnificent words to say. You don't have to be like, oh, you know, this is profound that I say this. Never do that. Leave them alone. Now, she asked, please go on ahead. Oh, and by the way, never ever talk about ex-girlfriends. Never talk about ex-boyfriends for your daughter. If they've been married before, don't compare them, okay, to the ex-spouse. Don't ever do that, okay? Daughter-in-laws will remember that forever, so just don't do that. Now, great mother-in-law, they create healthy families. Having a supportive mother-in-law who respects her daughter-in-law can bring joy not only in the life of the daughter-in-law, but for the whole family. And I'll have to tell you something that's really, because I grew up in this kind of a household where maybe grandparents might say something that sounds like it could be derogative toward your parents, between your mother and daddy. That's not good for the kids to hear. On the other hand, you should be the type daughter or son who doesn't run to your parents telling them about every little fight that you have, okay, and every little argument. And guess what? Everybody argues. I spoke to my grandmothers about that one time because my grandparents, I never saw them argue with each other. So I was like, well, my parents argue all the time. They never argue. And so I asked both my grandmothers, do you ever argue? I mean, I was getting up bigger, and I was thinking about, now I was 17 when my dad's mother passed away, but I was still old enough to ask questions. And before she passed, I remember asking her, I said, do you ever argue with Granddaddy? And she said, of course I do. What married couples don't argue from time to time? Of course I do. So, but it's really important that you don't tell everybody about it, okay? You keep that between you two. You always do that. Then I asked my other grandmother, we call them Mama and Papa. They had been married 67 years when my granddad passed away. So I asked Mama, I said, Mama, do you and Papa ever argue with each other? And she said, of course we do. And I said, I've never seen you argue before. She said, it's none of your business if we argue. And it's not. She said, when you get married, okay, you and your spouse, you and your husband, you're going to have disagreements. That's life. That's what it's all about. So here's some rules. First of all, don't tell your parents, you know, unless he does something really stupid, steps out on you or something like that. But even then, you try to heal it before you tell anybody anything. You never go running to your parents and telling them about every little thing, because the parents are never going to forget it. And the parents are always going to think that you're being mistreated, when all it was just a little, he might have said that you look big in that dress. Okay. There's no reason to go and talk to the parents. And then another thing, don't argue in front of the kids. And I said, well, my parents argue in front of us all the time. And she said, don't ever do that. Don't ever argue in front of your children. So, and then she said you need to agree about things as well. So I had an aunt and uncle constantly fighting. I mean, just always. And so they had these kids. And I remember the daughter, my cousin, wanted to go somewhere. She was only like 14 or 15 or something like that. She wasn't old enough to date yet. She wanted to go to this place that's not a good place. I mean, because I had heard about older guys hanging out there, which is not a good thing. And so she told her that the daughter could not go. Well, my uncle was in the next room right by, and he heard her say no. So the daughter went to the dad and said, "Dad, can I go?" And he just looked and said, "Yeah." So that's another lesson I learned. Phil and I, when we got married, and Brad was about 14 years old. And so I said, before we get married, I got to make sure we have this understanding. I said, so if Brad comes and asks me to do something and I say no, I don't you saying yes, whether you agree with it or not. And I said, if you tell him no, I'm going to abide by what you say too, because I think that screws them up. I think that they get all mixed up when, and then they start using the parents against each other. So one time Brad wanted to do something, and he was 15 years old. I didn't want him going out. He was too young. Too many things were happening. Drugs, big, and all this kind of stuff. So I kept a pretty close eye on where he went. And at that age, you really need to, for real. Okay, now they out on their own, they're in the 20s. There's nothing you can do. But while they're still living in your house, you need to keep an eyeball on them. And I said, no, you can't. He said, but Mom's going to be with a bunch of boys that we'll go to church with. And I said, no, you can't go. So then Brad went to Phil. Now, we'd just been married, okay? So he goes to Phil and he said, hey, Phil, I'm wanting to go to so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. And so Phil, the first words out of his mouth, they didn't know I could hear them. So Phil said, son, have you asked your mother yet? And Brad started kind of shuffling his feet around. He said, yeah. And he said, what'd your mother say? And he said, she said no. And he said, well, then the answer is no. So it's really, really important that you be a good mother and you be, and if I made mistakes, oh gosh, Bill, tons of mistakes I've made, but I've learned from them. And then also watching other people and taking recommendations from people that I hold in high regards is what I did when Brad was small. And then when Brad got married, I remember the pastor wanted to talk with me, the guy who was going to marry him. I wasn't offended by that at all. So he was telling me what I would need to do to be a good mother-in-law. And I'm sitting there eagerly listening because this guy he and his wife, I held them in high regards. And they didn't have in-laws or anything like that yet. But again, I took high regards of what they said. And so they were talking to me about, you and Brad have always been close. And we still are close. But he said there's going to have to be a time when he marries Larissa that you're going to have to let it go. And I said, I'm ready to let it go. And so I think often about what Steve Bass said to me when we were talking. Did I get offended? Nope, I did not. He only had Brad's best interest, and I had Brad's best interest as well. So anyway, that's it. I hope you learned something. If you've made some mistakes with your daughter-in-law or with your son-in-law, make amends. It's never too late to do that. You need to go to both of them, and you need to talk to them, and you need to just say, look, I made some stupid mistakes with you, and I'm really sorry about that. Let's start all over again. I promise you that son-in-law and daughter-in-law is going to love you to heaven and back. They're going to appreciate that. And guess what? Your son and daughter-in-law, or your daughter and your son-in-law, are going to have a happier marriage, and the kids are going to be like, whew, that's good. So go on ahead and do that. Thank you so much for watching The Edge. My name is Donna, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next show.